everyone, a very good day to you. Hope you're all doing well and welcome back to another episode of the Success Podcast. Guys, I'm very excited to introduce two very special guests that are here with me today. They are emerging corporate leaders and at a very young age, they have managed to climb the corporate ladder and they are on a massive ascent. Shenal and Yasuran. Nice to have you with us, guys.
Thank you for having us.
How's your day going? All good?
Doing all right.
All good.
Fantastic. Guys, I would love it if you could give me a small background about who you are, what you have achieved in the corporate sector, and what brings you here today. So, Shenal, can we start off with you?
Yes, thank you, Shashank. So, my name is Shenal Gunwardana, and I am 7+ years now in the corporate. I specialize in the banking sector. And of course, I come from a transformation background, which has then emerged into marketing. And now my core area of expertise is marketing and communications. So two major banks I have worked in, and communications and marketing is what I've done. And I've had the privilege, and I'm very grateful to say that I've been trained by global brand partners, Interbrand, and also on the transformation front, I have been exposed to and trained by, once again, transformation and global consultant Deloitte. And I think these have enriched and expanded my knowledge and experience in terms of what I bring to the table today. So in a nutshell, that's me.
Fantastic. Yasuran?
Right. So, Shashank, so right now I work for a conglomerate that's one of the largest conglomerates in Sri Lanka, and I function in the capacity of senior manager transformation. Before that, like Shenal, I was also a banker and a little bit of telco early days. So even I've also worked in one of the largest commercial banks in Sri Lanka, then switched to one of the emerging banks in Sri Lanka. There, of course, I was also exposed to transformation more. That's my core area. Then I've also got exposed to a little bit of HR as well. So HR transformation, I'm on the more people transformation kind of angle so far. But with this setup today, I am also involved in technology transformation as well. So that's about what I have done so far. And I'm also passionate in a little bit of psychology as well. So that's, I think that also complements what I do. So that's about me.
What brings the two of you all here together now? Usually I have only one guest on the show, right? The first time I'm bringing in two people in at the same time.
Right.
What made you all want to come here together as opposed to coming and doing this individually?
Right. So I'll answer that. And then let Shenal also give his perspective. But I think what works for both of us so far is that both of us, I mean, I can't call myself very young, but Shenal, of course, is a very young emerging corporate leader. And but for both of us so far, our dynamic and the friendship that we had in corporate as well as off duty and off work also really helped to complement each other grow, right? So when this conversation came up, it was Shenal's idea, and Shenal thought, why not we go together for this as well? You know, we've fought all our fights together. Why not this together as well? So that's the thought behind that. And we thought it would be a nice memory for us to look back and see one day also.
Now, there is definitely an age gap between the two of you all, right?
Correct.
How easy or difficult was it, especially when starting off in the corporate sector, to build this friendship? Because, you know, I mean, I'm sure you would have been quite a few years senior to Shenal, right? Yeah. And it's not easy to bridge that gap and form a good friendship, a good bond like you guys have today.
Correct.
Just run me through that story. How did this come about?
Okay. Can I take that too and give it a start? Because
Go ahead.
Because I think this was more love-hate relationship back then.
Okay.
I used to hate Shenal for who he is back then, but then I realized it's because he comes from a background where, at least in my perspective at that time, was very privileged, right, and parachuted to a certain role, and I didn't know why he was parachuted to a certain role also because I never had the context, right. Then later I got to know him better. Then I realized, okay, he's absolutely skilled as well. Then I felt, okay, you deserve to come into that role and play at that level because you are not just the talker but doer as well, right? So that made my perspective very different about Shenal. And at the same time, we gave each other tough competition while we work in the bank also. And then we had crazy fights. And then eventually, I think we both realized that we perceive one thing. And we are very career focused, and we also complement each other in terms of what we want to achieve in life. of course, very different personalities, very, very different. How he approaches things and how I approach things are very different. But at the same time, it completes a perspective when we work as well. So that's my side of the story, but I'll leave it to Chanel to.
So yeah, I think that's very well said. That's very well said. So I think my side of how I would say it is, I mean, life moves very fast. All right, and one moment you're doing O levels, one moment you're doing A levels, then instantly you have the need to go to uni, and then you see immense competition in the market. You see people skilling themselves with qualifications, and then you think a degree is enough. But it's actually not enough, because how many people today have that qualification as a standard qualification, as the start and as the simple starting foundation. All right, and then in this journey of skilling yourself or rather upskilling yourself, I think that's the correct word, right? It is important to not only have that paper qualification, it's also important to have that particular friend, or what I would call, the personal board of directors, right? And that is not something that you can sort of rather vet and interview and find. Like anything that we do in corporate, you have to figure it out with yourself, all by yourself, and you have to at one point have the bad people in your life and fail with them, and then get into the right people. So in my journey, I think where Yasura comes in is with the truth. All right, because I've had friends before, and I've had many people who have associated closely, they never gave me the truth. They never gave me the hard truth. They never told me no. This man tells me no. All right, and then as much as my ego is hurt, when I'm told, Chenal, no, don't do that. That's not right. You're wrong. At that given moment, actually, that is what I had to hear, and that is what I needed to hear, and that was given to me by my best friend and best colleague, Yasuda. So purely, I think the foundation of this friendship is, I think, you lift me and I lift you, and that's where we thought today, okay, we have a lot to share now.
It's interesting you brought up this point about a personal board of directors, and I think when we had a conversation earlier, also you mentioned this.
Yes.
What does this mean, for someone that's hearing this for the first time?
Yeah.
What is a personal board of directors?
Right. So I think you can add to this as I go ahead.
Please
so
go.
I think when you say personal board of directors, it is as simple as it is any company, any corporate, non-corporate, they all have their own board of directors to which they are governed by. Similarly, as a person, you must ask yourself, okay, who's governing me? Is it my mother and father only? Or is it my grandparents? Or is it just me? If you think that you are the only governing body, then you are really too big for yourself. And you've got real big ego. I mean, the fact that you need help, admitting the fact that you need help, and you need some strong guidance. All right, that is the moment you think, okay, I'm actually bigger than myself. All right, and I am not the only thing that I must circle myself around. And at that moment, when you see and realize that you need help, you seek help from the right people. And that set of right people that you establish around yourself are your personal board of directors. Now, I have my chief financial officer. I have my chief strategy officer.
Right.
All right, and my chief strategy officer is sitting next to me right now. All right, I have my COO. All right, I have my COO is probably my wife. I think it's important to mention that. All right. Then I have my chairman. That's probably my father. All right, because I mean, your parents also give a huge light and guidance in life. So they also need to be evenly placed in this structure around you. So I mean, in a nutshell, I think that, I mean, it's purely what you define as a board of directors. So in my context, it is that.
Yeah.
What do you have to
No,
say?
plus, Seshan, I think if you look at any company who will bring in directors, right, from the little experience that I have, I realize that you bring in a certain skill set to the organization so that you can give that strategic leadership to the organization, right? Forget directors, but at least the C level, right? So if you bring in certain skill set, that is also because, okay, that's a skill set that is needed for that company or the business to function. I think in this whole personal board of directors is also, that's the whole same concept, right? Yes, you and your family must be exposed to a certain level of lifestyle, certain level of exposure to the society, but there is so much outside as well. But your friend could come from a different background. Your wife could come from a different background, whole different perspective to your life. Why that matters? Does it always matter? Is this the only right way? Not really. You don't necessarily have to have a personal board of directors. There are so many people who are successful without that too. But that concept really resonates to us because that works for both of us personally, right? It's only our personal way. Then there's no right way, wrong way, like I told you that day also, right? So for me as well as for him, I think at least that whole hard truth, being able to have somebody who will not feed the ego and say, look, Mashan, that's a bad decision, I think is needed, right? Especially when we are fairly new to the whole, upper layer of the corporate, right? And also fairly taking challenges faster than how somebody else would take. Then you need that little bit of guidance. You need somebody to tell you you're wrong, all of that. Yes, people will applaud you, say that's all right and all great, but that whole negative feedback also is a must, I think, for at least for both of us now. That's where I think this whole corporate board of directors comes to play really, really well.
I think it's safe to say that the negative feedback that we both got actually, from a communication angle came to us in the wrong way at first. But then we were big enough to discuss it amongst each other and sort of nullify the wrong side of it.
Yeah. Because we had that conversation one day. We had a conversation one day and said, look, if both of us, right? I actually started and I said, Masang, if you want to hear only good and then praises about you, I'm not the right friend. Right? Let's agree that if you are, throwing something at me and, seek my opinion, you will not always get the answer that you need to hear. Right? You will get something that you don't like to hear too. Right? If we disagree, let's agree to disagree. That's fine. But we don't have to argue over the fact that I need to also believe in the same way that you believe. Right? That was an early agreement we had. I think that's a foundation of the friendship also, because he doesn't get offended now when I say, look, this is absolutely garbage.
I mean, every problem in life, right? Every challenge that you come up in life, either you seek validation for your answer or you seek a different perspective or a different approach. So you have to be the bigger person yourself and decide, okay, is my ego so big? Do I only need validation? Okay, if what I'm saying is right, is that what I want someone else to endorse to me saying, no, you're right, go ahead? Or is it validation only? Or is it a different perspective? Okay, you can do this differently, or you can look at this differently. Or do you really want the hard truth? No, you're wrong. You are absolutely out of your mind. So I think I never got validation, I think. I got perspective and completely different one. No, but I think safe to say, validation was also there in multiple places. No?
Absolutely.
Yeah. When it's right. When it's right. Correct? Yeah.
Now, one thing interesting that you all mentioned is how important it is to be able to handle that negative feedback, right? And I'm sure when you all started off in the corporate sector, there would have been positive feedback that came your way, which allowed you to climb the ladder. But at the same time, there would have been a lot of negative feedback as well that you had to understand and take it in a good perspective in order to move forward. What was your experience like when it came to handling criticism and feedback? And do you see a change in how it is being handled now?
Yes. Okay. If I take this whole negative feedback conversation for me at early days in my career, I'll give you a little bit of background. I started my very first job was at a hotel in the kitchen because I did hotel management. Right, I'm not starting like I had a very small, Lunu Kapala start M&MA, but I did hotel management. Therefore, I had to work in a hotel. Then that's a whole different work environment. Then I went to, then I worked with the bank, and then I went back to work telco, and then again a bank. Different areas, right? So one thing I realized is the feedback that you get is also comes from different forms in these different setups, because the surrounding and the exposure of those people who will give you feedback is also different. Did I have the intelligence to understand back then? Not really. If I had the intelligence, I would have not given up hotel school and then this whole hotel career also, right? Where that I gave up that because I was finding it very, very difficult to handle that feedback at that time. I thought, no, I'm just going, right? So that's a failing point for me, which I today realize I shouldn't have done that too. But I'm in a way happy too for where I am today. Yes, did we had the intelligence to handle negative feedback? Not really, right? That's how we started too. And then we had to be told by somebody, look, it's a feedback, right? I had a boss who would drop me home after work, and then on the way he would give me feedback. And sometimes I wonder, this is like a girlfriend boyfriend kind of setup, right? He would drive me and I would complain why I am right, and he would say, no, look, you're wrong, right? And and those kind of mentors actually shape you also, Shajan, right? They shape you into how you should take feedback too. Do I see the same resistance for feedback today when I deal with more younger people at work? Absolutely yes, right? Do I get frustrated about, okay, this Gen Z thing and then, they don't know how to handle feedback? Yes, right? But there's this one point when I at least drive back home, I realized, no, but then I was also that, no, at that time. It's nothing Gen Z about it. It's just human nature also sometimes. But I think it's how you give feedback, one, and also how you teach them to take feedback also, right? If you say, if I do something and you say, look, Yasura, this work is absolutely bad. If I think I am a failure, I don't think that's the right way to take feedback. It's not I'm a failure, it's just the work is not right. So that differentiation between yourself and then detachment between from yourself to feedback is also important. I was told that in my early career when I was working for that telco, because I was in the call center first, right? So in the training they told us, look, customers la katha karala bani, but remember, ඔයාට නෙමෙයි බයින්නේ, so you don't get angry, please, right? Buying a company එකට, so you handle it carefully. Call එක අම්බ ගම, you don't get angry and then you get worked up and then you don't shout at the customer back again, right? Or නෙමෙයි බයින්නේ company එකට, so deal with it. Those little things actually shaped. So that's the whole feedback story. But I feel like if you are taught how to take feedback, yes, it's better. It worked for me, and I think even for the younger ones, it will actually work if you know how to probably give feedback. Am I a master of giving feedback? My colleagues at work who are very younger to me say, look, මෙතන ගිහිල්ලා කිව්වට මෙයා feedback දෙන්නෙත් කොහොම නෙමෙයි කියලා. Which is the case. I'm also human. No, I'm also learning. So do I envy to be that perfect person giving feedback? Absolutely yes. I would love to be that. Work in progress for me.
Shanal, you have anything to add to that?
Yes, so I think to completely add to that. So now, if you look at where I started my career as an intern in the apparel sector a long time ago, I mean 8 years back. All right, throughout my career, from my internship, this is not something I ever expected. I have been able to, and I was always placed right next to the top. I was always working for some very emerging leader. And this is not something that I ever planned. And I'm very grateful for it, because the exposure and the knowledge and the feedback that I gained, negative and positive, has immensely changed the way I look at things, and today how I treat and give feedback to my subordinates. But I was lucky in the hard way, because from my internship itself, I was placed right next to the top. I was reporting to somebody very, very high in the C-suite level. I was their intern doing dashboards, doing all kinds of activities, all right? And as much as the learning curve was huge, the delivery and execution expected from me, even at an intern level, was very, very high. Very, very high. And honestly, I don't know how I just ended up surrounding myself with people of that nature. It just happened from the internship itself. So I'm guessing it's my faith, and it's the path carved out for me rather. So I mean, as much as I delivered, I got the look, Shanal, this is wrong. You didn't do this right. You failed. I got it straight like that. And most importantly, I got it in front of everybody, not in a private setting. I got it in front of everybody. And mind you, it was more than disappointing. It was embarrassing. All right. But then I really learned something there. All right. Looking back, maybe they didn't do it intentionally. Maybe they didn't do that intentionally, because they are also at the peak in terms of performance and KPIs, and what they are expected to deliver is much higher than what we are doing. I mean, we are just one piece of the pod, no? So, I mean, their expectations and what they have to deliver is very high. So, naturally, when they cascade that down to us, and when their bosses are disappointed in them, naturally they are disappointed in us. And I mean, that's the usual flow in corporate today, right? So, my feedback came in the mass audience with embarrassment and negativity and sort of I would even say complete disappointment. So I think looking at it today, because back then how I saw it as eternal failure. I failed. All right, I spent so much money of my father's. I've spent so much money of my parents to, get through a degree. I studied very hard. I got a first class. All right. But what does that do me today? This person told me you are nothing. This person told me you failed. All right. I mean, it hurts at that point more than your parents saying that. Because you know why? You came there solely to make a life for yourself. You saw their car, you saw that life, and you visioned yourself in that lifestyle. And that particular person who you are momentarily even idolizing tells you within a matter of days or weeks, you failed. That hits you harder than your mother or father or any family member or ancestral member telling you failed. That hits harder because, of course, that part I think we constantly hear it from our family. That is like a love and hate thing with our family. All right. So
you hear it from small.
yeah. From like, I mean, I don't know. I've been a very notorious man from my childhood. Multiple times has my parents told me that. But I mean, then again, so I mean, even as I move on in my career, when I became a junior executive, then when I became an assistant manager, then moving on to my managerial positions. If you look at the feedback that I have got, it has only got worse from that day. All right, because the structure that I got placed into with my career enhancements were bigger. The scope and delivery and the KPIs were bigger. All right. And the feedback that came again with all of that was also much bigger. But today, I think I'm very proud and humble to say that if I didn't get that today, I would have been a completely different person. So you need to hear yourself. You need to hear the word "you have failed," and I think this is the problem. I think with the upcoming generation, I think, we discuss this constantly, all right? When we give this feedback to somebody, all right, at least in the nicest way we know, right? I mean, we don't say it like how our bosses told us, no, yes. All right? Because no, we both have reporting lines, we both have staff under us, and I think they're younger than us, all right? And in my case, some are even like in my age, all right? And, giving feedback, handling that is a completely different experience. And we try our best to, we envision now, okay, if this person told it to me this way, I would have felt
true.
better.
That's true.
At least I do it constantly. I tell you
true.
this too, right? And then we embody that and we tell, okay, I will give feedback to this person today like this. So then it's more constructive for them.
I think you're doing it way better than me because we recently had a conversation about this specific individual who we both know. Yeah. And then that individual works with him. Yeah. And I said, Masang, I would never be able to be that boss who you love for that guy because he really like to work with it. I wouldn't be able to do that because I don't know how you do it. There's some magic. I can't, right? Yeah. It's a different style altogether. My style is very different. So that's what it is. I think you need to understand that part of feedback also.
So in terms of, you spoke about having a generational gap, right? There's a generational gap of thinking when it comes to millennials, the Gen Zs, and how they handle workplace feedback, workplace conflicts. How were you able to handle workplace conflicts at that time when you first started versus how do you see the Gen Z handling it now?
Right. Personally, I don't see it's very different from how I handled it in terms of the maturity of handling it, all of that. Yes, the way they approach that, Shashank, can be different. But I feel like, okay, when I handle it, I also didn't know how to handle it. They are in the same position too, right? And also in terms of feedback, right? Very interesting thought that came to my mind is, I think we also had that conversation. Look at artists like BNS, for an example, right? When they initially started, I remember what kind of feedback they also got, right? Sanskrutiya Kanava, the music is, bad, this is hurting the traditional way of music, all of that they got. One thing that came to my mind is like, look, give them time to learn and grow and, understand how these dynamics work. If you don't test different genres of music, how would you know what you can do and what you can't do and what works and what's not working, right? So they had their time and look at where they are now, right? They're giants in the industry and very well respected by all of these people, even by the people who gave them bad feedback. That's one side of the story. But thinking about the same thing, I also realized, had these seniors not give the feedback also, right? Imagine they were like, very well done, try karanne ke liye. If that was the case also, they might also not get that feedback also, right? They might also not navigate and operate in the way that they operate today also. In that way, I feel like, okay, is there a fault in getting negative feedback? I feel like not really too, right? You also need it too. Otherwise, you wouldn't shape yourself also, right? So looking at that, if I look at how they handle versus how we handle, in terms of maturity and knowledge about how to handle feedback, I feel like all humans are equal, including our parents' generations for that matter, right? But right now, there's a lot of feedback, one, and there's feedback coming from stressful situations, but from stressful people compared to some, maybe in our cases, right? We are much more stressed than probably our previous generation because the competition is higher. We are after money more than our parents would have been. So it's coming from a more stressed and tougher place rather than how we got it also. At least they had some thinking time. Imagine your brain is a battery. පොඩි space එකක් හරි තියෙන for them to think, neutralize themselves, calm them down and give us feedback. සමහරලාට I find myself, I'm sure Chanel also can relate that a capacity that sometimes we don't have, right? So it sometimes is given as it is also, which is really bad, right? But at least we should be conscious about it, and that shouldn't be a unknown for us also. No? So I feel like in that case they are doing a good job too, handling that whole direct feedback unfiltered, right? That is also a way. But there's this one thing that I see, I can't necessarily remember whether I also felt it the same way, but say, like I told you, if one feedback is given, I think if it is taken more personal, thinking I am a failure, then it's tough. Other key differentiator is that they don't have to tolerate as much as we tolerated at jobs, right? I personally tolerated feedback even though it was not constructive for that matter, because I had to stay in that job, because I had to put food in my table, and I had to somehow have the job, right? Job security was needed. But for them, they'd be like, no, this is not the right place. Bye, right? I'm out. Peace, right? Yeah. So that is a capability that they have, which I think is great too, right? I remember a very vividly a conversation in one of the previous banks that I had where there are union meetings, right? Where union team members come and address the teams. So one very important thing that they came and told is, look, union is seen as a negative setup in a corporate world. And at least that is how it is perceived also in certain places, right? But if it wasn't for unions from back then, from this industrial era, your workplaces might not be this comfortable today. We'll still be doing slavery, right? Hadn't they pushed for the benefit of employees as well, which is also true, right? So that then I'm thinking, look, that is also true. So that both sides of the coin should exist, right? Then for them it is the case because now in today's generation they have that luxury as basic, right? It is like having a washing machine in a house today, right? 20 years ago, washing machine was a luxury, and today it's not a luxury, no, it's part of the basics, right? So they have it, they're used to it, and they are doing something above that level. So we find it very unfamiliar. It's a fair feeling for us, but a fair feeling for them as well to handle it that way also. Right? I think that's how I look at it. At least that's how I try to look at it. Do I look at it like that every time? Not really, right? But at least I try to look at it that way.
So actually, I have a very interesting take on this. All right, I think I've discussed this with you also, right? So for a change, we'll ask you a question now. Yeah. Okay. So now, you being the up and coming media personality that you are today, were you ready for this? Were you ready to be chosen, or were you ready when you were chosen?
That's a very interesting perspective because I was actually talking about this to my parents also, right? And my parents were, because I stay with them at the moment, and one thing that they were telling me is, when you have your own house and you have to pay your own things, it's going to be so stressful for your other. And I said, look, every time I have been put into an opportunity, I have figured it out. I said, when you guys started a family, did you all know how to start a family? Did you all know that you would face these challenges? When you're building a house, did you know you would face these challenges? Because right now, even our house is under construction, right? And they are stressed every single day because every contractor you call is delaying the work. Everything that's happening is getting delayed. So I think not just for me, but for anybody, you step up to the situation.
Correct.
Right? For me, when I first started doing podcasting, for example, I didn't know that interviewing was a skill you had to research, you had to know how to ask questions. It's not just about writing down some questions and asking it from someone. That's fake. And that's something that I didn't even want to do.
Correct.
I always try to have a conversation. I always try to base off the information on what my guest is saying. Right? So I think in any situation, you step up to it.
Absolutely.
Right? You learn how to handle the situation when you're thrown in the deep end.
Correct.
You never learn how to swim unless you jump in the water.
No, absolutely. And I think that's a skill that is required today.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. Yes.
Especially if you live in this dynamic, that's a much more needed skill than how you would have look at, I mean, for an example, your interpersonal skills, all of that matters too. But being able to do that, if you look at the successful people in corporate or in other industries or wherever, I think that's a common skill you would find in anybody too.
Exactly.
But I feel like for our generation, and I would say even the younger generation, the opportunities that are available gives them more flexibility to make a snap decision whether they want to move out of an uncomfortable situation or not. Which, like you said, some people in your generation or older did not have.
Absolutely.
Right? So what we are facing, the challenges we are facing now, I would say are very different.
Correct.
To the challenges that the older generation would have faced.
Absolutely.
Right.
I think now, when you look at the Gen Zs today, I think consistency is something that we firmly believe in amongst us. I think you believe it in very much too. So I think there's a problem there, right? Because this available opportunity of switching lanes immediately destroys consistency. You have to get uncomfortable first to get comfortable, right? I mean, even when you sit in a chair today, all right, it first feels uncomfortable because it's not your chair at home. Then you eventually adapt yourself to it and you are comfortable. I mean, everything in life circles around being uncomfortable at first and then getting comfortable at one point, right? So, I mean, now, I think careers, for that matter, I think we've been uncomfortable for a very long time, right? We have both had our fair share of and it spanned, the uncomfortableness in what we do today has spanned for a long time. And today, if you look back at it, we are comfortable today because we adapted to that uncomfortableness. We embraced that challenge and we took that risk. When you have multiple lanes to switch, you don't take that risk. You switch and you keep trying something new for a wandering or like a explorer kind of personality. That may work. But I feel like the greater population who believes in consistency, consistent growth, play the long game, not always the short game, and not go for quick wins, and look at the bigger picture. You have to be at first uncomfortable. And then my question to you, why I asked you that is, I think the greatest men and women today, or the greatest people in the world, they were never ready to be chosen. They were ready when they were chosen. I mean, be it the greatest presidents, Obama, you look at Trump, all right. I mean, you look at Bush, you look at Clinton, all right. And then if you look at the local presidents here in our country, as much as the good that they have done for us, all right. If you leave the politics aside, they were never ready for this, were they? They were ready when they were chosen.
No, that's true.
It's not like they prepared to be chosen. Of course, there is some preemptive readiness and preparation.
That's true.
But, it's not carved out.
And that's the same case for some of the social media personalities also, right?
Correct.
I was talking to him about the upcoming, or he's already there, I think, this guy called Dinil, right?
Dinil Valpola, yes.
Whole different character. And I watched a couple of interviews and I found it very, very interesting. Do I agree to everything he say? Not really. But do I see some perspective and some ground in what he say? Absolutely yes, right? And I think he also was never ready until he got viral and all of that. No, now he's slowly adapting. He understands his business model. He knows where he can play. I think that's the case for all of us.
He knows his audience.
Right?
He knows his audience and he's a closer purely for that fact.
And that's beautiful to watch and then understand. But I think if we become that traditional, okay, my generation, that generation know that everything is wrong, I don't think we can learn from that too. Right? That's one. And coming on to this point of, okay, they have these multiple options, I think that does good to us also, Seshan. You know why? Because when they push, right, in corporates, policies align to that more flexible setup, right? Benefits align to that flexible setup because that's the workforce that you have to bring in. We also get benefited out of that also, right? We also get the flexibility and benefit in return. I feel like that is also doing good to us. Yes, you need to understand when to stop and the right level. But I think if you ask, is it right or wrong? I don't know how to say whether it's right or wrong. I think it's a perspective.
Yeah.
But do I see value in how they behave too? Absolutely.
Since you brought up corporate, I just want to say now, actually, I think a good 3 to 4 years of my career, I was trained to be a crisis communications expert. All right, I was trained to be preemptively ready for an organizational crisis to forefront and mitigate and bat for the brand. All right, and I think this particular experience I had and that vast training I had sort of is why I said that question. I asked you that question: are you ready for what you're chosen, or are you ready when you're chosen? Because can a brand today, be it financial, be it apparel, be it FMCG, be it corporate or non-corporate for that matter, because today we see multiple non-corporates also emerging, all right, brands, huge non-corporates. Are they ready for a crisis? Today morning, will they wake up and know, okay, tonight our brand is getting attacked, or this next week Tuesday, my brand is going to have a crisis? No, they're not. They don't know that. I mean, you can't anticipate a crisis, can you? All right, you can't be ready for it. That being said, either. But when it happens, you are chosen to bet it out, and at that given moment, you are left with nothing else but to figure it out and mitigate the risk.
True.
Absolutely.
So. Yeah.
You mentioned an interesting point about consistency, but I would also like to bring in something about loyalty.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? Now, if I look at my dad, he's been a corporate man his entire life. For him, his company is his second home.
Yeah.
Right? And he is loyal to that company.
Yeah.
He doesn't look for other jobs. He doesn't look for other opportunities while working for the company, and he genuinely believes that he is contributing to the betterment of the company.
Correct.
Right? But when it comes to the Gen Zs, do they have this loyalty towards their companies? Or are they constantly looking? Because I know a lot of people that are in a specific job that are looking for 6-7 different opportunities on the side, while also doing something freelance because of the opportunities they have available. Do you think that this abundance of options has killed loyalty?
I think the question that comes to my mind when you ask me that question is loyalty needed today? Right? I think, back then the jobs were more human-centric. You had a skill set, you are needed for that job. Therefore, corporates or any other company had to figure out a strategy to retain you also. Right? Because the skill set is with this X person. Right? Now the dynamics are also shifting, especially with the AI and the technology and all of that. Now also organizations actively design jobs in such a way that you don't need a personal skill, individual skill, right? It's more autonomous. Whatever is autonomous, whatever is automatable, yes, you can automate it, you can get the bot to do it, all of that. And if you need a person, yes, then that person is taken care of, right? Then majority of our jobs does not necessarily require loyalty either.
That's
right?
interesting.
Right. So then they are catering to that. That is one. Right. And on top of that, I think more than loyalty, what is needed today is being able to, how do I put it right? I think that is being reliable as a resource. Right. And the loyalty in today's context is giving the best you can while you stay for the pay that you get. Right? You get, let's say for an example, you get 100,000 and then you genuinely know you're not delivering 100,000 worth of work. That's not loyal, right? But you get 100,000 and you're satisfied, your supervisor is satisfied that you are giving the best what you could give. That is loyalty in today's context. But being able to be reliable, I think is a very, very good skill that you need to have today, because a lot of people doesn't have that today, right? Because especially with AI and all that, because see, you would get something off ChatGPT and then you would send it, right? And this person will read that through ChatGPT and respond to you back on ChatGPT. There's no actual conversation. It's machines talking to machines, right? But if I work at my place, do I push my team members or who I work with, my colleagues, to at least, read at least what is there and then understand? And if I am asked to do something from my boss, Do I take a minute to read and send rather than just copying pasting? I do that. I think that is me being reliable to my boss at least, so that he understands. No, he didn't just copy paste and send it. Yes, it is AI content, but this man took some minutes to go through and understand what is relevant and what is not relevant. Also, I think more than loyalty, it's the being able to rely on is what is needed today. Loyalty might not be needed in today's context also.
Are you of the same view?
So I am very much of the same view, and also I have a take to this too. I think this is a very cliche topic. I don't think many people talk about things like this today, but I think very interesting. So for me, loyalty is a two-way street, and it comes with a certain transaction, and it also comes with very effective communication.
Yeah.
All right. Now, I think how you and I define loyalty today, as of how you gave that great example of your father. All right. Today, for you and me, loyalty is not 20 plus years in one place.
Yeah.
All right, and not that gold badge we get for serving 20 years, or that plaque we get. All right, it's not that, right?
Yeah,
today, loyalty is okay. I give you this. What do you have to give me? All right, so it's a transaction. The moment one side fails, then loyalty is gone. All right, and you can't have the transaction also without effective communication. You need to be able to very clearly communicate, okay, if I am going to give you this, if I'm going to give you this much of my time, and if I'm going to bring value to the table, I need this. And then again, organizationally, they must be able to communicate, okay, we will give you this. And also, sometimes that particular transaction could be not monetary.
Yeah.
Now, I think we've experienced that quite well, right? So now, if you look at my last couple of years in corporate, it has of course, a big part has been monetary, but it had not been monetary as I thought it would be back in the day. All right, and back in the day when I look back at it, I always thought, okay, monetary is what I want, money is what I want, and financials is what I want. But I wanted certain other things also as I progress. Now, for instance, loyalty for me, certain transaction for me that I would receive would be the risk that I'm willing to take, or the risk that I'm sort of given the even playground to play with, and the risk that I'm given failure to take.
Yeah.
You can reward me with all the financial benefits, but if I am stuck in a decision box and in a cage, all right, where I am operationally bogged down, I would not be loyal, because naturally as a personality, I want to take a risk, because there is no reason for me to wake up in the morning and get dressed if I can't come and take a life-changing risk, and if I can't deliver. Because my delivery, for me personally as a person, comes with the risk that I take, and I think we've discussed this quite a lot.
Yeah.
So for me, loyalty comes with monetary and non-monetary benefits, and today I think it's safe to say that it's 40% monetary and 60% non-monetary. And also, that particular transaction can only be communicated effectively if there is very, very effective communication from both my side and the organization side. With that being established, loyalty is there, I think. So I think you did how many years in one particular organization? I think
About 13, 14
years. All right. I did 5 years myself in one organization. The longest stint that I have done so far is 5 years. All right. And then in that particular sort of time period, we both have had our fair share of experiences and challenges in establishing loyalty and trust. And I think we realized this particular spectrum of what we want through loyalty.
That's true.
Loyalty, we want something out of it. And today, I think Gen Zs, they want something out of it. Otherwise, they would not even mention the word loyalty.
Exactly.
They would not even, it's not even in their word cloud.
True.
Yeah.
In today's corporate environment, is it important to keep switching from company to company if you want to advance your career? Or is it better to stay on like the earlier generations used to?
Okay, I'll take it first. I think there's no right way, wrong way, right? For some, yes, it'll be working if you switch between companies. One, if you are doing a job where you would need, for an example, cross-industry exposure, right? And if you're working in a trade where it is actually skilling you up, if you know how other industries also operate, for that kind of job, I think you need to switch. And I don't think even the organizations today look at those kind of jobs as if, okay, if I hire you, you will stay here for 20 years, right? And that is why a lot of modern ways of employment are also in place. A lot of organizations now are mostly on contract basis, right? There are freelancing options in most places, right? That is also because those roles require this constant switch between places. And the organization also needs a different flavor time to time, right? And that is why that exists. But for some and certain types of jobs, yes, you might need to progress in one lane also. For an example, if you look at a doctor, for an example, right? Doctor can't suddenly become a lawyer, right? They have to go in that path. Just whether they work in the same workplace or whether they work in the same, domain, I don't know. But if you're a doctor, you're a doctor, right? Of course, you can do other things. You can do teaching, you can do tuition, you can do influencing, all of that. That exists. But there are certain roles that requires that same path too, right? But what works for you might not work for me. For me personally, all these 13, 14 years I spent in my former organization, do I regret it? Not really. I think that's the foundation that made me who I am today, and I'm very grateful, right? But do I have to be in a single organization today for that long? I don't know, right? That's a call I would have to take at a decision-making point, right? If I have a reason to stay, of course, by all means, I will stay. I think that's how everybody else look at that too, including the people who will have the conversation with me asking me to stay, right? And that's a very interesting question, because I remember when I was initially having my interview in this particular bank, right? It's early stage, right? And I was getting interviewed as the trainee banking associate. So I was there. At that time, I have switched 3 jobs, 1 year, 1 year, 1 year. Then at the interview panel, they asked me, now you are leaving that place to come here. And that is also a very good place. Why? And would you live here as well, right? Because I had a job at that point, I was also confident to give that answer. And I said, look, if I get a better opportunity elsewhere, I would leave. And so I had the audacity to also say, you will do that same too, right? Yeah. And today, looking back at that situation, I'm thinking, wow, I had the intelligence and the gut to say that. And that's interesting, right? I feel like the generation today also exactly does the same thing.
Correct.
Right?
And it has given this generation more opportunity to
absolutely,
do that, as opposed to any other generation before.
Absolutely.
Correct. Now, millennials might find it easy to relate to Gen Zs because we are more or less in the same age group.
Correct.
But baby boomers, the Gen Xers, they'll have a tough time adjusting to the bottom line.
Correct.
Do you think that millennials are the bridging or the bridge between these two generations? Shenal, what do you think?
I think, but that's a very tricky one. Yeah. So I think now, I mean, if you look at it, I mean, from a family angle, even for that matter, I think,
I know.
I think you are, and once again, you're not ready for that. Yeah. You are chosen to that. Yeah. You are chosen to do that particular job also. All right.
Tougher one also.
And it's a very tough one. I think it's more tougher than corporate for that matter also, because it's family. Yeah. And I think their effective communication, how you translate it between both the parties, you are like a mediator, or I think the right word would be donkey in the middle. But I mean, you are technically a mediator. All right, and you are getting hit from both sides.
Correct.
All right. Parents would say one thing. Yeah. All right, your siblings would say another. Yeah. All right, and you are like the middle independent party who has to either be a simple translator and just say, okay, they are saying this, you need to understand it in the grand scheme of things, this is what they want, or you need to be able to sort of sell the hard truth, which is what your parents or the seniors would say to the younger generation. Yeah. And I think in that context, there's a huge learning curve for us also as millennials. I think there's a huge learning curve for us, because I think there is to gain and to learn from both these categories for us as millennials. There is a part of us which doesn't want to be in Gen Z.
So true.
All right, there's a part of us as millennials which we don't want to be as a baby boomer. Yeah. All right, and there's a part of us that want in them also. Correct. I want freedom. I'm a risk taker. All right, I want to wake up tomorrow morning and go surfing. Yeah. All right, I want to, I want to wake up tomorrow morning and do something extremely crazy. Yeah. All right, and I want to call him and tell him, look, I did this today morning. All right, and but do I have that freedom today? No, but that's a Gen Z person does. All right, a Gen Z person does. I think we were recently talking about this, our colleague, friend, right, about how he jumps. I think you should mention that. That's crazy, right?
Yeah, so I think that's the beauty of it also, right? And then they also don't perceive what we perceived as a generation too, right? Yeah. So my friend would not get into a job if that had too much work, too much work outside the working times. Yeah. He would have want the flexibility to go to gym, go swimming, and then go, climb a mountain, do surfing, all of that. And it was a very different perspective to me to witness that up front and realize I was never that at that age,
Yeah.
right? And I envy that too in a way,
Yeah.
right? I wish I was able to do that too, right? But at the same time, I think this whole traditional way of no, but then that comes naturally.
Yeah.
But I think that's a very interesting dynamic because we are at the middle one, and it's an important role because it's changing very fast also, right? World actually is genuinely changing very fast, right? AI is coming, there are other things that are happening, and then different generations are coming to workplace. So there's a lot of changes happening faster. For that generation, that change was not so fast, right? Of course, faster than their previous generations, but not so fast. The Gen Zs are living in this more fastest way of changing, and the alphas are even more faster, right? And we are sort of in the middle where we experience the whole traditional structured way of doing things as well as this constant changes, switching lanes, that's there. So I think we play a big role there, and it's a tough role to play. And I also think it is a very important role, especially in workplaces, right? The fact that we need to understand there are two different ways of working because your direction comes from mostly a senior guy, and you have to get that executed through a junior set of colleagues. Then it's a tough game.
Take marketing for example. All right, take marketing for example, and let's look at some let's not mention names. All right, but let's look at some industries. All right, and let's label them for the benefit of these topics as the Gen Z market, the millennial market, and then the baby boomer market. All right, now financial sector, I guess it's safe to say it's a more baby boomer market, right? It's
evolving into a more modern
market, right? So it's more trust, it's more
That's
loyalty
true.
because of the nature of the transaction and the product. All right, but now what have we seen as corporate videos in the financial sector today? Banks are promoting trust, banks are promoting strength, banks are promoting pride. All right, pride in the context of 50 years, 100 years, centenary celebrations, stuff like that. All right, now they look at bringing that to the millennial market through AI. Now there are some banks experimenting this very nicely today, and we see this out there in social media. All right, you bring a millennial or a Gen Z, and actually Gen Z actually, all right, now they bring a Gen Z person and then they show the financial brand and how inclusive and holistic this financial brand is for this particular Gen Z person and how it is such a great place to work. And it actually is, and it's beautiful how that entire marketing campaign works. It is beautiful.
True.
All right, then you have Gen Z brands piggybacking on the T20 win, all right, and T20 and sort of completely taking a risk and diving into the deep end on purely whether Pathum Nissanka will win the match this time or not. All right, and I mean, if he wins, which he did, so be it. Campaign is a success, but it's a huge risk. That is also working. All right, and if you look at a more sort of like a calm and toned down brand, all right, which is appealing to the millennials and the Gen Zs and also to the baby boomers, they also have a unique way of sort of communicating to the audience, and I think even that works. Like for instance, let's take Lux for that matter. All right, the soap is appealing to pretty much all three generations. All right, the body bath and the body wash is appealing to what, the Gen Z and the millennials. All right, who want to try something new, who want to do something different. All right, there is a marketing campaign to cater every product today and service, and I think generationally it is working very well. And the sort of the switching lanes within the industry and trying something new to communicate to that, I don't know, Sec C, Sec B, and Sec A. I'm being very technical now from marketing scope, bear with me, but it's really working. And it's beautiful to see these things come out, I mean, these campaigns. It's really beautiful communicating. So I think for that matter, communication is key. All right, so I think communicating once again in the millennial era is key. To the baby boom era, communication is key. Knowing what they want and what they look for is the right way of doing things.
Focus is another huge aspect of succeeding at anything, whether it's corporate or whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're an influencer, whatever it is. Do you think this massive digital overload that we are having, not just the Gen Zs, but millennials, the baby boomers, the Gen X, whoever you are, if you have a smartphone, if you have a laptop, you have a massive digital overload.
Correct.
How is this affecting the focus of people coming into the job market now?
Interesting question, because I also sometimes, even though I'm not Gen Z, find that is to be very difficult for myself as well to focus, right? One is that most workplaces session are now designed in this hot seat arrangements, all of that also, right? That way you also lose the environment where you can focus also, right? You do one meeting, right next to you there's another guy running another meeting, and then that exists. And at the same time, in terms of content, there are so many things out there, right? And then if you take your phone to your hand for a second, you'll end up scrolling for 30 minutes minimum, right? And then you'll lose track of what you've been doing also. I think we are also now, as humans, evolved into that kind of setup also, where we absolutely can't focus for a longer period of time, right? And probably that is where the platforms and the technology like AI also comes to play. For an example, whatever you need to think and focus and do, probably AI will give you a structured think now, so that the 3-hour thinking that you had to do before can be done in 20 seconds, right? So yes, there is a challenge in focusing. Is it required? Yes, it is. But you need to figure out your unique way of getting into that focus also. For an example, personally me, while I'm working with my colleagues, and so are they, will use a headphone, play some rock music, focus and do 15 minutes. Cut, done. Right? But that 15 minutes is intense, focused work. Right? Unlike when I started, I can't do 2 hours of focus work. Today it's absolutely impractical. Right? But you need to figure out your way of still giving that focus. You don't have to necessarily give 2 hours at a stretch, no. You take 15-minute break, and then you can do the same kind of output too. But I think it's figuring out what works for you. For some, now for an example, I'm a more work from home person. I'm absolutely effective in work when I'm working from home. But I know people who get distracted when they work from home.
Like me.
They can't, right? And it's fair. And I find it very amusing when they say they get distracted. It's like, how are you getting distracted, right? You don't have any noise, right? How are you getting distracted? For the same reason, even when I'm working from home, I prefer the night, right? Because very less sounds, very less light surrounding you. You can switch on one light or your laptop screen or whatever the device that you work in, and then you can focus. So that's my way, and I figured that out, right? If you feel like you can't focus, I think you need to try different routes and figure out what works for you. Then you'll find your way also. Right? I think focus is important, but it's just the recipe of how you do it.
Yeah. So I think my take on focus is, I think this is something beautiful. My take on focus is something completely different. And my take on focus and sort of this digital overload is something completely different. But personally me, I need noise. I need the environment we've discussed it. I need the environment to be as loud as it can. I need people screaming. I need problems. I need Monday morning, if it doesn't come with a challenge, it is boring for me. And if Monday is a work from home, my God, I'd rather sleep. I'd rather call it a day. I mean, I need to get up in the morning, get dressed, wear the tie, go to work, and I need to have a problem to fix. and that problem must not come easy. It must come with noise. It must come with chaos, and it must come in the most chaotic way possible for me. Otherwise, I can't focus.
I think you'd make a great entrepreneur.
Yeah, no, I genuinely I can't focus if that is not there for me on the table.
Yeah.
And I mean, grateful to say, I think for the last 5 to 6 years, it has been at the peak, and the learning curve and everything has been there for me through that. How does the digital overload come for me through this environment is how I leverage it. All right. I mean, now today, how much attention do we pay on TikTok? Or do we just keep scrolling because we are tensed or we are stressed, or do we just feed the anxiety and are we just scrolling? All right. Because today the average TikTok, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you would know this better than me, 5 seconds, is it? The average TikTok span from a person, they would pay attention for 5 seconds, correct? So I think it's dropping now, right? I remember last day it's about 7.
If you can't hook someone within the first 3 seconds.
3 seconds now, you're gone. Yeah.
And half of the time what we watch, we can't even remember.
Correct, yeah. So I think the AI tools helps me leverage what I want from the digital overload a lot on a daily basis, and it also helps me sort of concentrate better, and it sort of substitutes my concentration, or sort of complements my concentration rather, with the entire noisy environment I surround myself with. Library was not a place that I went quite frequently in my life. A library was not a place that I went frequently in my life. I don't essentially attend quiet places a lot. Personally, as a person, I don't attend funerals a lot. Family wise, I don't attend a lot of funerals. I try to stay away from that because the quieter the environment, the more you see people grieving and more there is sort of negative energy and crying. I stay away. I surround myself with noisy environments. Sometimes I just take a walk in Gall Road. It's very noisy. Vehicles are horning, people are going around. Tuk guys are just going crazy. Motorbike guys are going crazy. I mean, I love that. I love noise. I mean, now it's beautiful for me. If you look at countries for that matter, I think Bangkok, somewhat very noisy places, street markets. I love going there. I mean, we both traveled to Malaysia last year. We both separately traveled to Malaysia, and I think he went to the more quieter places in that country. I went to the more noisier places in that country. I went to the most noisiest places possible. He went to the most quietest places possible. So I think it's a mix and match.
That's true. That's true.
It's a mix and match.
That's true. And I think that's why it works very well also. And this is again the dynamic, right?
Yeah.
That is why it also works also because he is a more execution guy in my perspective. So he wants to get things done faster.
Yeah.
But that's a complete skill set. I might find myself struggling if I was put into that same situation. If I was put into this kind of work environment where everything is noisy, I will be on headphones. That 15 minutes will happen from me. But I will not thrive like him.
That makes a lot of sense. Let's also talk about how, see, when you take digital overload, there is a lot of comparison going on, right? And a lot of people that are starting out in the corporate sector or whether they're starting off as an entrepreneur, they constantly look at how other people are enjoying their lives on social media, how this person is doing this person is buying the latest car, and there's a lot of comparison going on that puts people in a very negative mindset.
Correct.
And this is why you see a lot of mental health issues going on as well among the upcoming generation. You have anxiety, you have depression, and sometimes you're just sad, but you categorize yourself as, hey, I'm depressed or I'm anxious because of what you see online.
True.
When it comes to the working environment, you guys have to deal with all of this from the people that are coming up. Have you faced such challenges? Have you navigated them successfully? What has your experience been?
Yes, you're right. Because when you get into a situation where you get overloaded with a lot of things and then you have false expectations, yes, you feel like, okay, right, I need to achieve that. It's coming from a place of you envy that also. And at the same time, it's coming from a place where you feel like I'm not enough, right? I think that comes to financial things, that comes to physical things in way you look as well, right? There are certain sets of ways to look at that. Luckily, I think there is now also a bit of a trend where you are embraced as who you are also to a decent extent, right? That also exists. But at the same time, I feel like, yes, there's a lot of pressure and anxiety, but most importantly, there's a name for it today, right? Back then, when I was 20, did I know about anxiety, depression? No. I may have had it, but I figured a way to solve it, right? But today, there's a term for it. Today, there is an industry who's catering to that particular need, and that is what it is, right? I've come across ads where it says, look, test your anxiety. Right? And I test the anxiety, and when you go to the last page, it says pay $10 to know if you're stressed, right? That gives me depression.
I had to pay $10.
The fact that I have to pay $10 to know I'm depressed, right? So it's an industry too. But do I really, value the fact that there is a need for mental health and, dealing with all of that? Absolutely, there should be. Because like I said, the noise is too much. The pressure is too much, the stress is too much. Of course, you'll go crazy when you are put into that, right? And it's a very different setup from your family to suddenly when you are put into a work environment. You are not pampered like how you were pampered at home, right? Plus on top of that, you have, like you said, the whole noise and the information also overloaded. Have I handled it? Yes, right? I have a very interesting incident that happened a couple of years ago. There was this junior colleague who worked with me as an intern, and I was asking him to do a certain document, and then the deadline was 5 o'clock. And I told him, if you can't meet the deadline, that's fine, you tell me. But I realized by 3 o'clock he was stressed out, right? And that is not a very difficult task also, in my perspective, right? But 3:30 he took the bag, left, right? And left the job, right? And that was a life-changing moment for me. And I realized, okay, how I dealt that situation is not the way that particular generation is dealing with that situation. We called, never answered. We had to call his family, and he said, "No, I'm not coming back. Sorry." Right? And that's a very different way of handling stress and all of that too, right? Is it right or wrong? I don't know, honestly, but that shaped me, right? And in that kind of situation, do you need that whole, okay, do you need to look at your mental health? Do you need to look at your, ability to handle stress? That is just two. Those kind of incidents made me understand, okay, look, there is a need for that whole way of you giving feedback, you pressurizing a certain individual to get a certain delivery done. That also has to evolve, right? Otherwise, you will not be relatable, first of all, right? It's not wanting to be liked by your team, but to be able to get work delivered, because that's your job, right? That is what you're paid to do, so you have to do it. But the way you do it has to evolve because of this kind of situation. They are all over too, Sasha, right? And so are we to a great extent. But at least I think that skill set, figuring out what to focus on, is also important. Do they have it as they enter corporates or any job for that matter? Not really. We need to give them time to grow that also, like we got time. So yeah.
I think yes. So I think that's very well said. And then also, I think when it comes to this anxiety and depression, I think we all as humans, I think at one point of time in our life, gone through it.
Yeah.
And
Or we are already in it.
We are probably in it too. We never know. We are probably in it too. We never know. Yeah. So I mean, now if you look at it now, if you look at my life for that matter, I've had one moment I think not one actually, like maybe 2 or 3 moments in my life to this date where I have felt that everything around me is as big as it could get, and I'm just drowning and I'm a sinking ship. All right, certain people drove nicer cars than me. All right, they dated that girl. All right, and I had no money to even buy a bus ticket. All right, I had nothing. I was, if there was something called minus, I was that, not even zero for that matter. All right, and I intentionally chose not to take my father's help when I progressed in my corporate. All right, and I think that was one big decision that I made also. And for that matter alone, I started at minus in corporate. I did not seek any help, and key foundation stone of our friendship is also that. He always compliments me about how I also started from minus in whatever way that minus is. Now his minus is far different to my minus, but we both agree on a common ground that we started from minus. Yeah. No hand holding, no special treatment from the family. We started as small as we could start.
Correct.
And I think in that circle of journey, I also went through my fair share of depression. But samara means duka market karno ke liye, that concept of duka market karno. I didn't sell my depression. Yeah. I didn't sell my anxiety. Yeah. Looking back at it now, do I think I would have been better off if I sought help? Of course.
That's so true.
Definitely.
That's so
Definitely.
True.
But back then it is important to understand and highlight that we didn't have the friends. All right, we didn't have the inner closer circle to speak about it.
True.
And if at all, I think we thought if we spoke about it, we have failed.
Yeah.
All right, and it's an embarrassment.
That's true. That's true. And that's a very important factor, Seshan, because see, personally, I myself have gone to therapy at one point, right? I think that's a very important help that you need to also have the guts to take also, right? Because it is needed. And I know for a fact there are a lot of people who are keeping it inside and then don't talk to other people and then don't try to, seek help. Yes, of course, it's very tough to figure out where to take help from also, because not every friend is trustworthy sometimes, right? Not every parent is as understanding it could get sometimes, right? So it's very difficult to open up and talk. But there are channels open, right? For an example, it's a lovely thing to do. I've seen government has opened up certain call channels, right? There are free organizations that help people, right? And it is a big problem, right? And at the same time, what I suggest to a more younger version is that don't label it as a big problem also.
And don't try to market it.
And figure that out. It's part of being human anyway. It's the reality also.
You must never say, I need special treatment because I am going through this in life.
Correct.
Because there is always somebody who's going through far worse.
And might not even talk about it. They must be dealing with it themselves, right? Yes, they must be stronger. But at the same time, there's a way to handle it, right? And at that, honestly speaking, do I realize all of these, thought-leading thoughts when I am depressed? Not really too.
Not really.
Right? Because for me, that problem is the biggest problem in the world. That's how I am at that point. But what you need to go through is, before you get into any of those problems, you need to be aware of what are the helplines available, how you can seek help. For an example, ChatGPT can be the first level of help for that matter, right? I've done that. Sometimes when I feel really, really stressed and if I feel I have no help, right? And I don't have time to, book a session with my therapist and go, I just simply ask, right? I don't know whether that's the right way of doing it, right? But there's at least some help, right? And then you can figure out a different perspective. I think that is also needed, and it's a very important topic and it's a very sensitive topic.
Correct.
And which I feel there is decent amount of help too, and I think you need to seek help too.
I mean, if you look at the grand scheme of things, all right, being it male or female, let's look at people in general. What is the biggest problem in life you can have today? A health problem. Because the moment you have a health problem, everything else is second to that, right?
So true.
Everything else. This was told to me by somebody very important to me, who I really look up to and who has coached me. What is the biggest problem that you can have in this life? Whenever I reach out to him for something, for some advice or for some guidance, he tells me, okay, Shanal, is this the biggest problem you can have right now? You are talking to me like this is it. All right, you're talking to me like this is going to be a showstopper, but is this the biggest problem? And then one day I asked him, okay, then you tell me what is the biggest problem that I can have? The ego man in me, I asked him, what is the biggest problem I can have? And then he said, it is health. The moment you have a health problem, everything else is second to that. All right, and health problem is not just the physical health.
Correct.
It is the mental health also.
As well.
And how can you train your mind? As much as you can, you need to understand that only you yourself can train your mind. Today morning, if you wake up and you look at yourself in the mirror and say, I am going to be great today, you are going to be great today. All right, and where does this all start? Where does confidence? All right, where does skill building? Where does competency begin? From you.
Correct.
The moment you believe in yourself, the moment when you tell yourself, today I will be the best, you are the best. Nobody can stop it. Nobody can stop it. Is the richest man in the world today the happiest man in the world?
That's so true.
we had this conversation yesterday.
Yes, that is so true.
Is the richest man in the world today the happiest man in the world?
Yeah, we've all been seeing what the richest man has been.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. I mean, my God, as is exactly. See now, even at that level, it comes with a whole paradigm shift of problems and everything,
That's
right?
so true.
Yeah.
That's so true. That's so true. Because if you come to think of it, I think this whole conversation about also being happy at the same time, right?
Yeah.
It's a tough place to be in. But the conversation that we had yesterday with both of our former boss, right, and a great mentor to both of us, is that okay? If the way you are happy versus the way I am happy is very different, right?
Yeah.
He outright said, Shana,
You're an ego man.
yeah, you're an ego man. He's not.
He's not.
Right? The way you approach things and the way I approach things are different, which is very true, right?
Yeah.
And onto that, I also asked a very interesting question. And this gentleman has a very young child, right? And he adores the child, right? And I was always curious. Now, this is ideal personality in at least my mind, and I'm sure for him as well.
Same,
right?
Of course, yes.
And I was also wondering, okay, now that is an ideal way of operating that we have seen, right? But that same person is pampering the child so much.
Yeah.
And I had to ask him, don't you think it's too much, right? And he gave a very interesting answer, and he was like, yes, it is too much, but you also need to know how to communicate the same message or same learning that you learned out of hardship to them in a different form. Right? That was mind-blowing to me, right? And I need to mention that great man, he's Yamal Munsing, and both of our former boss, right? And that's also kind of coaching, mentoring that we get also out of those conversations, right? And you also need that kind of board director also in your life, who change that perspective about how you approach things. All this time I thought pampering is bad, right? But apparently it's not, according to him, and it is true.
I love how he said, as much as you see it as I'm doing it for her,
Yeah.
it is also for me.
Correct.
And I needed that. I needed that. I love that. I love that. And then, I mean, how many times do we look back at certain things, certain decisions that we have done in life, all right, and think, oh, did I do this wrong? Or did I really need this at that point? And honestly, you should not do that, because it is purely you did it for yourself, and you must wholeheartedly embrace it, because that is your self-pampering, and I think we all humans need it, right?
That's
we
so
all
true.
need to feel good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So before we go into the next question, let's take a quick break.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then we'll move on.
Lovely,
Right?
lovely.
We are back after the break.
Yes.
Right. So one thing that I wanted to talk with you guys about is the type of attitude you need to have when you not only want to move up in corporate, but if you want to achieve anything in life. I actually had an interview a couple of months back, I believe, with again another head of corporate. And one thing he always said is he started from the very bottom, right? He comes from Polonnaruwa. He said, when I got introduced to the corporate sector, I had nothing. I had no connections, no one I could reach out to. I did everything. It was a lone game. And one thing he said that helped him move up in this corporate world was that he had a very positive outlook on everything. He said, if my co-worker was saying, hey, I'm finding this stuff, I'm struggling with this, he said, I would step in, complete the task for him for no recognition at all. And he said, the good thing is, people on the top tended to notice that level of attitude, that level of positive outlook. And he said, whenever there was an open position, he was the man who was considered for it. Today, he's at the top of the corporate world and he's thriving. How has that experience been like for you guys? And what advice would you give to people that are constantly complaining about the work environment?
Shanal, you want to take?
Yeah, so I think very interesting, and I think this is what I think the Gen Zs really need to hear. It is not easy. All right, you every day you meet the autocratic, you meet the democratic, and then you often also come across the laser sphere. And then how you strike a balance is from an attitude perspective of being a mix of all three. And I think these are basic fundamentals. I think probably one of the few things that I learned from business studies at school was the autocratic leadership, democratic leadership, and also the laser sphere approach in terms of how to, go about business. So I think when it comes to attitude, the right mindset and the right attitude comes with a mix of all three. But amongst all, the positive mindset and the can-do spirit. All right, and then being able to accept change and also being able to become a change maker through effective change management, and having the right attitude and approach to embrace that and go about with that, I think helps you get about corporate well, and at least that has worked for me, and I think safe to say for you also, right?
Yeah, because Shanal, I think couple of things, right? When you say attitude, two things comes to my mind. One is the attitude that we need to have, and also the more younger generation that is flowing into workforce or to families or to wherever, right? I feel like one attitude that will help anybody grow is being patient also at some point, right? But that has worked for me, and that might not work for anybody else, like I told before also. But I think you need to be able to, a classic example, I thought to myself, right? When I was in my early career, I know very little, right? About the work, about how you deal in a corporate, all of that. But there's this breathing in period where you will learn and take things in from a place that you work, right? For an example, like an internship, right? And at that point in our life or career, we will feel like, okay, we do a lot more work than we are paid, right? But it is also the learning that an organization or a place that you work gives you that compensates the work that you do, right? That's a breathing in period. Then you get into a position where you can actively contribute. Then you can ask for the fair price, right? When you genuinely feel like, okay, I'm actively contributing, and it also can be that I'm in the perception that I can contribute. When somebody else also validates the fact that yes, you are genuinely contributing, then you can negotiate, right? I think we need to wait to that stage until you complete one stage in life where you can eventually actively contribute. Until then, if you're too demanding, then there'll be somebody else who will replace you. That's thing. So I think that is a core skill I would feel, or an attitude I feel like works well in today's context. Also, the fact that, like he also said, that whole willingness to change also, right? Environment is very dynamic, Shashan. The places we work is very dynamic. Our families are very dynamic, right? And we work with multiple set of people. Then you have to approach certain individuals in certain ways, certain organizations in certain ways. What works for you when it comes to me communicating something to you, or me approaching or interacting with you, might not work with him, or might not work with my boss or my colleague, right? So that dynamic self is also, I think, something that you need to have in you. The fact that you need to be ready for it, right? Accept that, and also on top of that, everything doesn't go right also all the time, and then I feel like sometimes it now, classic example for me is that there was this one period, like we earlier spoke about this. Okay, social media paints a picture, and then we all want to achieve that, right? At a point, it was very difficult for me also. Right? I was thinking I'm chasing too much and I'm trying too hard, and then nothing is working, right? Then I thought to myself, මට තියෙන ගෙදර මට ඇති, මට හම්බෙන salary එක මට ඇති, and let's first be happy with what I have also. Tough one, because you constantly see that, you know, what you don't have also. But I tried, right? That gave a little bit of peace of mind too, and then that reduced my stress to a point where now I can use that capacity to focus on doing something better, focus on making work a little more perfect than I do, making myself a little more reliable to my boss than I used to be. That gave me space. I think that shift is also an attitude shift that I need to take. Right? So that I think that there you find multiple dimensions, but in terms of attitude, there's no right, wrong way, but for me at least that worked.
How do you deal with complainers? Because I have seen a lot of people when I've been working in different places. They have nothing good to say about the company. They have nothing good to say about the salary they're getting. They have nothing good to say about the co-workers that they're dealing with. Every day, it's a new problem.
Yeah.
Right. How do you deal with that?
It's an interesting one, because I've been a complainer myself in early stages of my career. Right? Then something that I was taught by my supervisors at that time, as well as something that I myself internalized, is that one thing, බලෙන් රස්සාවට ගත්තේ නැහැ. Right? That's something I fundamentally believe. මාව බලෙන් කවුරුත් රස්සාවට ගත්තේ නැහැ. So I applied, I faced the interview, I got selected, and I went. Right? And at that time, I signed a contract. I very well knew what the benefits that I'm going to get in terms of that. Maybe in terms of workload, I may not have had a right picture. That's a different story. But it was your choice to first to get into that place. It was your choice to remain in that place. Right? If things are not working, yes, you can go through the cycle of complaining and learning for yourself that complaining never gets you anywhere. Look somewhere else where your competence and then your skill set is valued. Right? And then move on with it. If you complain and stay, we know multiple people who are like that today also, right? And if you complain and stay, you're only going to stay and then remain complaining, and then more than anything, be unhappy. If you have the right attitude, you'll also be that person who will want to build up your skill set, you know, adapt to certain situations. That's the kind of attitude also, and especially Session today in the industry, as well as work outside work, right? There are a lot of, like I said before, the AI and all of that will give you a decent support in terms of the knowledge that you need to have to do a job, right? But if you don't know how to use it, one, and if you don't have the attitude to operate in that environment well, I don't think somebody can be very, very successful. And if you have the right attitude, only you will seek for that too. Right? To go to right places, understand certain things, and not look at the job or the task that is given to you as just task, right? Then if it will not feel like a burden to you.
And also, I think, how many certain tools do we use today, right, to test attitude? I mean, we use the ENFJ test, all right? Is it
That's
just
true.
competency, all right? And no, over the last couple of years, I myself have been privy to the Harrison's test, all right? And is it testing my attitude more than my skill and competency? Yes, it is. The organizations today want to find out whether you're the right fit culturally, and how they measure that is not by your competencies and skill, because the moment you sit at the interview, they can evaluate and understand that. But your attitude is measured by a test. All right, and they like to gauge it as well in advance as much as they can by putting you through these tests. And then I think each of these tests, I think across our careers, has been a learning curve for us, right?
Yeah, I came across this. I honestly can't remember who introduced me to this test, but there's this 16 personality test on internet, which is a free one, which I used to send to most people that I will work with, right? Be it a hire that to my team in previous places as well as now, or even for colleagues sometimes. I randomly send and say, look, macha, make Kalaban and tell me the result. That gives me a little bit of insight into how I need to operate with that person and how I need to communicate with that person, because that is totally different from one person to another, right? And their skill set to do a certain job is also to a decent extent reflected in that, right? That is one tool. And then there are so many other like professional level tools like Harrison's, Mercer, for an example, where HR community uses, right? When it comes to recruiting, all of that. That also do measure to a great extent. But I feel like at the end, you'll only know the attitude when you actually start working, right? After 6 months down the line, probably you'll be able to say, right? And also when you don't have that fear of losing the job also, right? Something that I came across is that if you're on say for an example, you're on probation, right? If you are a person who would want to have the job so badly, you'll show what is needed to be seen by others until you have the security. The moment you have the security, things might relax a bit. You might be the person who you genuinely are sometimes. I've come across that too. So no test can tell you exactly your best fit or not. But at the same time, it's an experience too. So it's a reality. So we have to deal with it.
Is attitude something that can be built, or is this something that comes from home?
I think it can be built if the person's attitude is such that I am trainable, right? And if I feel like, okay, my way is right and that is it, probably you are not so trainable, so nothing can be built. Probably not even a skill set for that matter, right? If I feel like, no, I need to change, I mean, there are so many things I have personally done in terms of changing the way I look at things over the years with experience, with my personal experiences, when my family member goes through something, right? The classic example is that whole parenting and then pampering, right? My attitude towards that was, if you pamper somebody too much, you'll raise a very entitled child, right? But at the same time, when my sister recently had her baby, I find myself pampering the kid more than I thought I would do, right? Now my perspective changed, because I'm now in that seat where I thought is wrong, and it changed. So I also now begin to believe that if I feel something is wrong, I might not know it enough also to judge that is wrong, right? So when I am in that shoe, probably I'll have a different experience altogether.
I think the attitude also comes from home. I mean, once again, like I sort of said, it can be changed only if you are willing to change. I think some of the greatest people, I think that we have had some of our biggest conversations with our mentors. I mean, one of the first one or two questions that they would ask is, do you like change? If yes, then are you willing to change? And that's where your attitude is put to the test. Because if you say black is black, then you'll only see black, right? Why not white? Do you like white? If you're not very open to white, then you can't change. I mean, it's more of a mindset that has been also built generationally, and that comes from family too. But you can always break the cycle. You can be that generational cycle break too, and you can change everything from a family level for the next upcoming eras. Also, you can change that because you are the one who solely decided to change this attitude, and with that, everything else changes.
True, true. Interesting point that I remembered when Shanal mentioned that. I watched the interview with Shanal Mahana for that example, right? Something that I caught during that session was that schools, reputed schools, being able to, put more people in the corporate and then they are selected more. Probably that is also the background, the attitude that they create and form by home, by the society that they live in. It could be also the case, right? It doesn't mean that somebody from a school far away from Colombo, who is from a distant area, who is from a family that is struggling to put the food on the table, might not have that attitude too. But if you are in a certain set of um, society, a certain set of associating with certain set of people, then your attitude also will be influenced by them. Therefore, it will be more diverse and more colorful.
I
Also,
think that brings us back to your point of the board of directors.
correct.
So
You
you
are
are.
some of the 5 people you hang out with the most.
I was about to say that you are the mind of the five most people that you spend the most of your time with. And in that five people, there's always family. So you have to choose very wisely. There's always friends. You have to choose very wisely. There's always your superiors. You have to choose very wisely. There's always your subordinates also, because there is no such thing saying that you cannot learn from anybody. You can always, today I always tell him this whenever we meet out for anything. Machan, I learned so much from this person.
Yeah, true.
All right, and it's so hard to say that this person even works for me. I mean, I think I should work for them. I mean, I say that myself. I mean, I am big enough of a man to accept the fact that, okay, one day if circumstances change and I have to work for them, so be it, because I'm already having a huge learning experience by just having
is
them
true.
work for me. All right, and that is then again my attitude towards looking at that, right? That's how I look at people. That's how I do people management.
That's true.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's talk a bit about parenting and how important good parenting is in order to create a productive citizen to society. What has your relationship been in your own families, and how has that shaped you to where you are today? And how do you see that coming up in the people that are entering the workforce now?
You take it first.
Okay. So I think I've been I think I'm very grateful and very humble to say that I've had a great childhood. I've had two parents who've loved me from the bottom of their heart, and whatever I wanted at that time, within reason and budget, I have had. And I saw them struggle their life. I saw them struggle for the most of their life, and yet I had food to eat. I had a roof above my head. All right, I had money to take the bus to school, and for that I'm eternally grateful. So I was actually much better than the most. All right, and I was big enough of a man with that simple necessities that I had, which today people take for granted. All right, which today the Gen Zs take for granted, what their parents give. I was very grateful because I had friends. Because once again, my school, all right, you had the richest, you had the poorest, and you had people who came there because they could not get selected to a local school. All right, they couldn't go to St. Thomas's. All right, they couldn't get through to Ananda. All right, because of that, they didn't have a choice. So I saw it all. So I had that spectrum of friends who I played in school, grew up with in school, studied. So I saw it all. I saw the gratefulness, I saw the ungratefulness, I saw disappointment, I saw all of that. But I think the greater understanding of parenting came, I think, when we grew up and when we went to corporate. And I think I discussed with him a lot, and he tells me, Machang, you are never ready for it. You're never ever ready for it. Was your father ready to be a father when you were born?
Not really, no.
Not really. Was your mother ready to be a mother when you were born? Not really. And that one I owe it to him, because he taught me that. And whatever misunderstandings that I had, or other thoughts that I had, okay, why did they do this? Why did they tell me this? I'm hurt by this. He only brought that sense of balance. It was like, were they ready? I mean, did they ask for this? Not really, right? Were they prepared for this? Were they prepared for you to come at them like this? And were they prepared for you to behave like this one day? Not really. Yeah. So I think there is no such thing as great parenting. I think every parent is great. If not for us, I think the three of us would be here today either. I think for that matter, every mother and father is, I think, doing their best and is the best. And there should be Mother's Day, there should be Father's Day, because every damn day is Mother's Day and Father's Day, because purely we are here today sitting as we are like this in corporate because of them, right?
True, that is true. And also, Shanal, I think in my case, I have a very different experience when it comes to my interactions with my parents. But at the same time, my mother has supported me throughout for everything, right? She has been the strength throughout all of these challenges. But at the same time, my father has been, my interaction with my father has been a little distant, right? But today, when I'm at this stage in my life, when I look back, of course, there's this song I think from Gypsy Saratata Talk kind of song, right? Now I realize it because maybe he didn't intentionally, want to train me and then put me through hardships so that I'll be built stronger. But that experience made me get to where I am today, right? So for that I'm grateful, whether it was intentional or unintentional. I think I am privileged enough to go through that also in a way. So that parenting also worked, and so did this parenting, right? And I'm sure you, Shashan, you also must be having something similar, right? It must be a very different way of approaching as parents, right?
When I drive, one thing that I pay attention to a lot is these quotes on three-wheelers. I mean,
Tuk tuk wisdom.
there is some real tuk-tuk wisdom, all right? And then I think the game keeps getting better. Talk about a competitive industry, all right? That's one, all right? The recently, I think about a couple of weeks back, I think towards early Feb, I saw this one person, one three-wheeler, red one for that matter. I was stuck in traffic and I was really angry because I was just, at one point it was not even moving and I was stuck in one place for about 20 minutes, moving 5 feet at a time. It was very frustrating. And then this two guy had on the three-wheeler, on the back car, on the sheet, it said, Amma meo loke virya tatta. Amma meo loke virya tatta. And I realized, damn, that's the truth, right? That's at the end
True,
of the day,
true,
the truth,
true,
right?
true. And also, Shan, other thing is that parents in our generation as well as who have kids who will enter work or wherever, right? Kids growing also need to understand that there are certain skill sets that they also need to infuse into those kids too, right? Especially on the feedback part, right? That is something I also feel like I'm dealing when I have to work also, right? If you are not taught or in a nicer way also to take a negative feedback, right? To understand that okay, if somebody says this is wrong, it doesn't reflect that you are a failure. Those things also has to be done through parenting also, right? And today more than I think long time ago have there are help also for parenting. There are multiple books, there are multiple right ways of parenting. So there's no one way you can say, look, this is the way to parent also. But at the same time, I think parenting is also very challenging in today's context, and it is a skill too, right? And then does okay, if you are a great parent, does that make your child great? Sometimes no too, right? There's luck at play too sometimes, right? There are parents who are both teachers who who have kids that are going so notorious at some points, right? But there are at the same time parents probably who are drug addicts, probably who are into different trades, but have produced great children, right? So I don't think there's a right way, but I think there's this luck at play. There's this dynamic, the not only parenting but the society that you live in also at play. But something, if you look at parenting for an example, I think today it has to be more conscious, and because parents also don't have time now, right? I don't think my sister would have time as much as my mother had with me, right? As a parent, my sister and her husband might not have the same time to give the child full time, because today sometimes both the parties have to work in a family, right? My mother used to say "ඒ කාලේ පවුලේ 13 දෙනෙක් හිටියා in the same family, and then one person only was working, right? And then they were able to put food on their table, and in a very grand way too for that era, right? But today you can't do that, and in most places you don't have your parent at home all the time, right? So whatever the little time that you get, you need to spend effectively. Of course, you are tired, you are stressed, all of that is true. But then you produce that child. I think all that work that you do is also to make sure that you grow as a family too. So there's a certain amount of investment in terms of time effort you need to give to as a parent. I myself is not an expert to advise on parenting because I'm not a parent, but I have been parented by my parents, so I know the flows and what worked and what didn't work. That's that perspective. If I have a child one day, will that perspective change? Yes.
You never know how
Yeah.
things will go. As we enter the last leg of our conversation today, I want to talk about the importance of communication in the corporate world, because a lot of people that are watching my podcast are people that are either struggling to speak English or they already know English, but they struggle with day-to-day communication, and especially when speaking in front of an audience. How important is that skill to succeed in the corporate world?
Right. There are two things when it comes to communication. One is that you should be able to effectively communicate, and you also should be able to effectively decode and get a message. Right. Both has to work together. Right. If you are ineffective in getting the message in and decoding a certain message, that is also not effective communication. That's also another skill set, especially you need today, given the fact that there's so much noise around you, right? And communication doesn't mean it's a certain language, right? It is visual too, right? And both of us are two different styles when it comes to communication. My style is I visualize things. I do a lot of slides, PPTs, right? So I should be able to crack a certain idea, break it down to certain elements, make it visualize to a point where you understand, right? And in a slide, I can't put 300 words, right? So I need to have cues in the slide where I should be able to explain you by myself, so that I need to understand the ideology behind the slide too, right? So you need to understand first, you need to internalize first, and then also you need to be able to effectively communicate. And I don't think there's, of course, in corporate that is different too, but I don't think there's, my personal belief is that if you are effectively communicating even by sign language, you're communicating. Language matters, but of course, you need to not learn the language for the sake of learning the language. You need to genuinely have the need to learn the language and learn the language, right? Even English for that matter. I might not be the perfect English speaking person, but if I am able to effectively communicate with you or for him for that matter, I have succeeded. But I need to know where I am communicating also. I can't go to a boardroom and then sit in front of multiple people and then struggle in a certain language. Or I should be very proud about me speaking in Sinhala and speaking Sinhala for that matter. That is also one way. But I feel like when it comes to a certain language or certain visual way of communicating, you need to understand why you need to learn that, have a right intention to learn it, and then effectively learn it. Otherwise, if you do just for the sake of doing it, most of the time the learnings that you will learn will not get internalized. So during the course or during the period of the program, you will remember, you will do all of that, but you will not effectively make effort to practice it, start using it. Right? I remember now I don't come from a English speaking family, right? I used to watch movies with subtitles just so that I understand the word and meaning, right? I used to listen to English songs just so that I get the hang of the pronunciation. Right? I used to listen to podcast which is in English just so that I can hear people talk. Right? That is also certain ways of learning too. Right? So I don't think there's. Of course, you need to go to a place where they'll give you the right technical know-how in terms of operating a language too. But you also have to have the intention to use other resources you have also and collaboratively learn together. And if you go to a course and say, look, I go to your course and I pay you this much, and by the end of the course, I need to be able to speak English magically, I don't think that happens.
Correct.
Right? Because you can't also deliver that. You can't make somebody speak English if they don't want to speak English, first of all. Right? So you also have to have the intention to learn and take as much as resources you have and collaboratively have the salad together so that you have the right balance which works for you, and then learn.
So I'll break it down to two in very simple. All right, let's look at it from an organizational perspective. How do we communicate today? All right, we have a product. If there is no communication, we can't sell it. No. All right, and the true essence of marketing today is communications. And me being in corporate communications and marketing communications for the greater part of my career, that's one of my biggest learnings. All right, how do you effectively communicate? You can have a marketing campaign which makes no sense. All right, it will make no sense whatsoever. But if you at one point put the right word and if you mention the right keyword at one point, and if that is communicated, your campaign is a success. The start of it can be absolutely garbage. The ending of it can be absolutely garbage. But that one keyword in the middle will just make it successful. All right, so now today, if you look at the grand scheme of things, all right, now the brand ambassador market is now slowly picking up in Sri Lanka. We see top personalities now representing big corporate brands. All right, why is a corporate looking at a brand ambassador to already communicate a 50-year-old, 100-year-old, heritage-driven brand which already has a huge top of mind brand record? Because they still feel that this could communicate better This brand could be communicated better and penetrated through the people better. And they are big enough to understand that they can't do it by themselves and they need someone else to come and communicate it. The brand ambassadors' communication skills are so good that they penetrate the market on behalf of the brand so well, everybody wins. He is a part of a prestigious brand as a brand ambassador, and the brand gets much more revenue through their marketing efforts. Personally, you can have all the qualifications in the world. You can have all the skills and competencies in the world, but that one particular skill that you need to have definitely and ineffectively is communication. Because how would you sell yourself? We all have to sell ourselves. So
At one point,
at one point, we all have to sell ourselves. At the end of the day, you have marketed yourself well. We have marketed ourselves well. That's why we are here today, right? So I mean, if you do, how did we do this? Because we all had effective communication. So language is key. Attitude is key. The right personality is key. The willingness and ability to change is key. Willingness to change is the most key of all. I think with all of these combined, the right communication is the most important thing.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for being here today. It was a pleasure having this conversation with you. Guys, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel, share this with a friend, let us know your comments down below. Until our next video, keep practicing.